I want to remind you that you are under oath still, and
Yes.
we are going to continue with our questioning. We're going to
Yes.
start where we left off at what about the accusation that you threatened to burn down prison officials' houses during the hunger strike committee hearing? Do you have evidence that Trevor Clark, Kevin Chamberlain, and others falsely attributed those threats to you in order to justify retaliatory results?
Yes. So the context here, the Hunger Strike Committee hearing, this is run by Deputy Warden Robert Welch. He's in the room. The unit management administrator was in the room. The unit manager was in the room. The head of security, the major, was there. The head of psych services and the head of medical were there. And there were probably a bunch of other people too. And if you look on, there's an email that Deputy Warden Welch sent on the 18th of June, PREA page 19. He discusses that Hunger Strike Committee hearing meeting. There's no mention of any threats in there. And then I was released from SEG, like, I think the following day. So if I were to attempt to threaten to burn down the director's house, I think that probably would have been mentioned in the email about that. And I think probably I wouldn't have been released from segregation the following day. And if you read PREA page 14 as part of the conduct report, it says that my motivation for threatening to burn their houses down was to stop the interstate transfer. What interstate transfer? No one had mentioned an interstate transfer to me. You have to remember, I had a clear conduct record for the whole previous year. I was about to get dropped to medium security.
I need to interrupt you. Every time you talk, I don't know if it's your speaker or something, but it keeps clicking.
Okay. Let me see if I can arrange. Here we go. We'll do it this way. We'll pull it up a little bit. Is that better?
Yes.
So, okay.
So
Yes.
interstate transfer.
Yes. So there was no interstate transfer for me to try to stop, as far as I knew. You know, people only get interstate transferred if they've been found guilty of a rule violation. I hadn't, at this point, hadn't even been accused of a rule violation. So there would be no interstate transfer for me to try to stop. And I don't know how threatening to burn down somebody's house would stop an interstate transfer. I would think that would make them more anxious and ready to move somebody out of state. So I don't know. Also, if you look at, we have Kevin Chamberlain's emails, the guy who wrote the conduct report. So on PREA page 23, he admitted he didn't know about the threats. This is while he was still formulating the conduct report. On PREA page 21, he said there were no threats in an exchange with Trevor Clark. But then on Trevor Clark's orders, the accusation of threats still remained in the conduct report. All of those exchanges are on PREA pages. So it's clear that Trevor Clark was advising his co-defendant in civil litigation.
On PREA pages, what day? On PREA pages, what were those on? You froze.
16 to 23.
Thank you.
So it's pretty clear that Trevor Clark was advising his co-defendant in civil litigation, Kevin Chamberlain, how to frame me up, even though Kevin Chamberlain expressed reservations that there was no evidence. And he filed the conduct report anyway.
On what date did Kevin Chamberlain file the conduct report?
July 2nd, 2018, and that conduct report is PREA pages 11 to 15.
Why is the timing significant?
Well, the timing is significant because I wasn't even facing disciplinary action until July. My disciplinary process wasn't finalized until November 2nd. That's PREA page 31. But ODRC officials' internal emails show they were arranging my out-of-state transfer in June.
Before you
PREA
were
page,
ever charged with disciplinary actions,
right.
infractions.
PREA pages 28 and 29 show that exchange between Erlina Shepard, the Interstate Compact coordinator. In an email of September 28th, she revealed that she had started my transfer in June. So it's clear they plotted the transfer not in response to disciplinary processes that hadn't happened yet. The disciplinary dog and pony show was just the justification they could point to later on if anybody started snooping around. The truth is, I reported Trevor Clark for PREA violation. Chief Counsel Stephen Gray said, drop that or we'll send you out of state. And as soon as I filed litigation to expose Trevor Clark, they started the transfer process. Then they fabricated a disciplinary frame-up that would justify it. On PREA page 30, Erlina Shepard was even talking about to Virginia, trying to get them to house me at Red Onion State Prison, which is arguably the worst prison in the world.
So, after Stephen Gray's letter admitting to PREA retaliation and threatening further PREA retaliation, including administrative action, you face 6 administrative actions, including the one we just discussed.
Yes.
And in each of those, Trevor Clark, whom you've accused of sexual misconduct and was under investigation for PREA, was provably instrumentally involved in every single one of those administrative actions.
Yes.
And this last administrative action was initiated by Trevor Clark and his co-defendant Kevin Chamberlain immediately after you filed litigation against both of them and served discovery that would potentially expose Trevor Clark's sexual misconduct and PREA retaliation.
Yes.
And the plot to retaliatory send you out of state, as Stephen Gray had threatened, was undertaken before you were accused of rule violations that even the charging official, Kevin Chamberlain, admitted were improper.
Yes.
As this disciplinary action was justification for a series of retaliatory results that followed, please describe the disciplinary process employed in this case.
Okay, so at this time in the ODRC, there were 2 different disciplinary mechanisms. There was the Rules Infraction Board for common ordinary stuff, and then there was the Serious Misconduct Panel. Only the Serious Misconduct Panel, if you were referred to that, could elevate your security. So my first time through the disciplinary process, I went before the Serious Misconduct Panel. I wasn't given the conduct report or anything. I was just ambushed in a hearing. Didn't have any ability to defend myself. They found me guilty. I appealed that and it was remanded. When the case, so that SMP conviction was reversed.
When the case was remanded, did you return to the SMP?
No, I returned to the RIB.
So
and that's proven by pages. Sorry, that's proven by pages 25 to 27, because Doug Lunicky was at Warren Correctional Institution. He was a deputy warden, and the SMP had to be composed of people from outside of that prison. So because Doug Lunicky worked there, it proves that he was in fact on the RIB, as the paperwork shows.
So the RIB who reheard this case did not have authority to raise your security.
Right, but then they did it anyway, and that's PREA pages 32 and 33.
Did you appeal your transfer to higher security?
I did, PREA page 34, and I won that appeal. So through the whole process, this is important for things that happen later on. Through the whole process, there was no valid basis for my security to be raised beyond level 3, beyond close security.
Can you describe the processes you employed to report the pattern of PREA retaliation you were experiencing?
Yeah, so I called PREA on the hotline, I called the outside line, and a transcription of that appears as PREA pages 35 to 38. That's about the non-disciplinary. Then I wrote a certified letter describing all of the disciplinary stuff and sent that to the ODRC as well.
Did the ODRC acknowledge your reportage of PREA retaliation?
They did, PREA page 39.
Did ODRC Legal Services, the same office where Trevor Clark and Stephen Gray had been employed, investigate the PREA retaliation claims?
No.
What did the ODRC do?
They shoved me in a van without the statutorily required hearing, and they sent me to Virginia.
Violating federal statute and ignoring your PREA claims, they transferred you out of state without employing the processes mandated by state law.
Correct.
You have documentation demonstrating that you were held in Virginia?
Yes. So PREA pages 40 and 41, these are also obtained from the ODRC. Show the documents that were generated by the Virginia Department of Corrections when they held me there. I got fortunate because they didn't send me to Red Onion. When I first got to Virginia, their interstate compact coordinator met with me and said, look, we're not quite sure why you're here. We don't know what's going on. He said that he had reviewed everything that Ohio was doing, and he said that Ohio wanted me held at Red Onion, but they weren't going to do that. He said, looking over everything Ohio was doing, the word he used, pardon my language here, the word he used was bullshit. He said, it appears that everything that they're doing here is bullshit. And so they sent me to medium security.
How did you return to Ohio?
I had to file a federal habeas from Virginia, and the Virginia Attorney General had to defend holding me in their state. And when he got all of the paperwork, he contacted the Virginia Department of Corrections. And according to their interstate compact guy, the Virginia Attorney General said, get him out of here now. None of this is legal. And so they got a van and they sent me back to Ohio.
You contend that your transfer to Virginia was illegal and that ODRC officials knew it to be illegal. You have evidence of this?
Yes. So PREA page 61 is Erlina Shepard's replacement, Tracy Reveal, the interstate compact coordinator, referring to my transfer as illegal rendition. So internally in their own documents, the ODRC admits that what they did to me was an illegal rendition. In other words, they kidnapped me.
So to sum this up, you faced contrived disciplinary charges that even the charging official questioned on orders of the administrator you accused of sexual misconduct, and after an irregular disciplinary process that could not result in raising your security was raised anyway, and you were transferred out of state illegally as admitted by the ODRC administrators central to the process, and you fought your way back to Ohio through the courts.
Yes.
On your return to Ohio, did the retaliation end?
No. And you'll recall, there was no valid basis to have me raised from level 3 to level 4. So validly, I left Ohio. I was still close security. I didn't leave here as a maximum security prisoner. So I won the placement appeal. So also I spent 2.5 years at medium security in Virginia, and that's proven by PREA pages 40 and 41. So when I returned, they didn't bring me back to Corrections Reception Center. They brought me back to the Ohio State Penitentiary, Ohio's super duper max. And I was given an intake review to determine my security level. That security instrument recommended that I be placed at level 1, which is minimum security. Instead, I was placed at level 4, which is maximum security. That security review is PREA pages 42 through 45. Kari Hupka, who worked then for Jeff Mustard, who was the replacement for Brian Wittrock, made that determination. And then when I appealed, that's PREA page 46, my appeal was denied by Kari Hupka. So Kari Hupka affirmed her own decision on appeal. I was given a 3-level override, which is the first time that's ever happened in ODRC history. I was raised from a minimum, and I was placed at maximum security, and there was no actual reason given.
So, as the only prisoner in Ohio penal history to qualify as a level 1 minimum prisoner with a 3-level override to maximum, based on disciplinary contrivances manufactured by Trevor Clark, you experienced the security level retaliation that Stephen Gray had threatened.
Yes.
This takes us to December 2021.
Yes. So on the 13th of December, 2021, Interstate Compact Coordinator Erlina Shepard sent an email talking about that my next transfer to Maryland was already approved. And so she was telling administrators at OSP to give me a hearing so that I could have due process.
So the decision to send you out of state again was made before you had a hearing to contest out of state transfer.
Yes. So apparently due process is the right to complain about a decision that has already been finalized.
But you were provided a hearing?
Yes, unlike in Virginia. So PREA page 48 is the 48-hour notice. PREA page 49 is the Interstate Compact Committee hearing. The committee was composed of unit staff here. And when they met with me, they made the decision, PREA page 49, they made the decision to keep me in Ohio. PREA page 50 is the Interstate Compact Committee's email to Erlina Shepard. And you'll see in that exchange that after Erlina Shepard found out that they recommended me staying in Ohio, she communicated to Jeff Mustard, hopefully you won't see this, because she didn't want it to ruin his vacation that I was staying in Ohio. That was on the 23rd of December.
Please clarify, who is Jeff Mustard, and can you explain how you claim the retaliation is systemic?
Right. Right. So you'll recall at the beginning of all of this in 2014, Brian Wittrock was in charge of the Bureau of Classification and Reception. And he was all for my interstate transfer and all that stuff. He ended up getting replaced by an assistant of his named Jeff Mustard. So when Jeff Mustard came in, Jeff Mustard took over the role of Brian Wittrock. And from the emails from Erlina Shepard to Jeff Mustard, it's pretty clear that he's personally invested in getting me back out of Ohio again, which tells me that he's still sharing the same animus. You also have Erlina Shepard was the Interstate Compact Coordinator. She would at some point get replaced by Tracy Reveal. Tracy Reveal would continue the same kind of inimical behavior. You've got Trevor Clark left the ODRC entirely in 2019. I believe Stephen Gray no longer works there, but you now have Vencott Brown and Margaret Moore. So when new people step in to the roles that were filled by the people who started all of this retaliation, they continue the same program of retaliation. Even if, and I don't know whether they know or not, even if they don't know that the inception of everything that they're doing to me was a PREA incident. But I would suggest that they likely do, because they were assistants to the other people and they were in the loop.
Did your counsel challenge the legality of the transfer?
Yes. So before the Maryland transfer could happen, my counsel, Eric J. Allen, filed a civil action in Franklin County to stop the transfer. PREA pages 52 and 53 show communication between the Attorney General to the ODRC, Vencott Brown and Margaret Moore, the attorneys for the ODRC, and then Vencott Brown and Margaret Moore to Erlina Shepard and Jeff Mustard on the 12th of January. So this proves that all of them were on notice, that the court had the case, and that it was up to the court to determine the legality of the transfer, that the thing was in court already, the PREA claims. Because I had mentioned the PREA claims even in this action also. So everyone from the Attorney General on down knew.
So, upon return from an illegal transfer that they internally admit was illegal, they secretly planned a second transfer before giving you a hearing, and the committee determined you should remain in Ohio, and your counsel challenged the transfer in court, correct?
Yes.
So, what did the ODRC do?
They ignored all of that. PREA page 54, after consulting with legal counsel, Vencott Brown, Margaret Moore, who work in the same office that Stephen Gray worked in when he threatened me, Jeff Mustard ordered a hearing do-over. So to be clear, he was demanding that the Interstate Compact Committee change their minds and send me out of state, even though they already decided to keep me. So PREA page 55 is the decision from that shotgun hearing that still provides no reason for why I'm going out of state.
Did you appeal?
Yes. PREA page 56 describes emails from Erlina Shepard where she said she stopped reading the appeal at page 5. And to quote her, she said, "He mentions me and Trevor Clark." So that means she read up to where I was describing my PREA retaliation claims. On that same page, you see Jeff Mustard saying that he would handle the appeal, and Erlina asked when to send the van to come pick me up, even though the appeal hadn't been answered yet. My appeal is on PREA pages 57 to 59. In it, I report PREA repeatedly, and it appears as though Jeff Mustard's just simply ignored that.
Doesn't federal law require Jeff Mustard to report your PREA claims?
Yes.
Did he report them?
No. And it appears that it was under the advice of legal counsel, because there's an exchange that's blacked out from legal counsel. He sent the van in order to get me transferred out of the state before the court could intervene.
Did you transfer to Maryland?
No. It was during the process of that transfer that they chopped off my finger in a steel door. So as a consequence of that medical emergency, I didn't end up in Maryland. And then the court took over the case.
After all of this, did you again attempt to report this long pattern of PREA retaliation and the effort by Jeff Mustard and others to cover up your PREA claims?
I did. PREA pages 62 through 70 are kite communications that I made to the PREA investigator, and you will see in her responses, she just refused to investigate them.
Describe how the campaign of PREA retaliation has been facilitated by administrators covering up and concealing your PREA reportage.
So first, the initial claim was never resolved until March of 2018, which gave Trevor Clark and all of his friends 4 years to burn my life down. I think we're about to get cut off here. We're going to have to probably pick up in the next session.
Okay, no problem.